G'day, it's Jamie and welcome to Tantanilla Tigers. Today I'm reading part 2 of The Native Cat War, which was letters to the editor for the column The Naturalist in the Australian Town and Country Journal in 1884 that was about Quolls. So we'll get into it. This first article was published in the Australian Town and Country Journal on Saturday the 31st of May 1884, titled The Naturalist, the Tiger Cat. The tiger cat, Dasurus maculatus, is the most interesting of all Australian carnivora and belongs to the somewhat numerous family Dasuridae. It is closely allied to the Tasmanian devil and to the Tasmanian wolf, but differs from them in many important respects. The Tasmanian devil differs, among other points, from the true dasurs in the entire absence of the great toe or hallux. The tiger cat at one time was found occasionally in the vicinity of Goulburn, Crookwell, Glen Innes, Bendemeer and Armidale. But strictly speaking, it cannot be said that this animal is or ever was plentiful in this colony. On the contrary, the reverse may be stated. This is a cat which, when once seen and critically examined, cannot and never should be confounded with any other species in the colony. It stands alone, and no written description could accurately describe its beauty and remarkableness. It is an animal whose weight when full grown is about 14 pounds, and whose length from tip of tail to the nose in larger mature specimens is 5 feet 2 inches. The mounted specimen in the Sydney Museum is not a large one, and I have seen much better. The cat, which excepting that it is a marsupial, is a tiger in miniature, has 4 incisors on each side of the upper jaw and 3 in the lower, possesses well-developed canines, and has 7 grinding teeth on each side above and below. It has 4 toes in the foot, and none of which are united by a web. The great toe or hallux is rudimentary, and the tail is not prehensile. Its colour is rich yellow with pure white spots. One remarkable feature in connection with this animal is the shortness of its legs in comparison with the length of the body. The tail is always as long and sometimes longer than the body. This cat is not unfrequently confounded with a mongrel species of cat, which is particularly plentiful in the south coast and various parts of the colony. But it transpires that these 2 cats are critically examined. The difference between them is remarkable and striking. The tiger cat, in common with all marsupials, bring forth its young in a very rudimentary state, and afterwards puts them in the marsupium or pouch. Mature mothers have as many as 6 at birth, and rear that number occasionally, but 2, 3 and 4 are more usually the number. In no case whatever does this cat rear 9 young ones, as has previously been erroneously stated, as it could not suckle that number for the simple reason it has not got that number of teats. The tiger female cat has no placenta, nor is there evidence of its existence amongst all the dasurs. This evidence of the existence of a placenta is wanting in the case of all marsupials, as well as in the case of the echidna and platypus. Though united in one order with many other cats, the tiger species differs considerably from all its fellows. The number of teeth, the extraordinary largeness of its canines, the physical strength and size, its vampire-like attributes, its well-known ferocity, and the powerfulness of its claws and jaws, and the comparatively extraordinary largeness of its head, separate in great measure from its family. What would this animal be if it were 50 times sizes larger? Of all dreaded animals, it would be the most dreaded. This cat is essentially a bloodsucker, and when it does visit a fowl house, an event which now rarely or never occurs, the result of its visit is pronounced and unmistakable. I know a gentleman in this colony who has succeeded after years and years of trouble in domesticating this particular cat, and having carefully studied and watched this species, both in its wild and semi-domesticated state, for a period of 10 years, I venture to say that I can speak on the subject of tiger cats with a fair amount of confidence and authority. Yours, etc., H.J. McCooey, Dubbo, May 10th, 1884. This next letter was also published in the Australian Town and Country Journal on Saturday the 14th of June, 1884, titled The Naturalist, Native Cats. Wagga, May 22, 1884. In issue of May 17 appears another article by Mr. H.J. McCooey respecting the native cat. And as I consider such an article to be, to say the least, uncomplimentary to those who wrote in reply to his first article upon the same subject, I cannot allow the matter to pass over without making some remarks relative to Mr. McCooey's article. In the first place, I must inform that learned man that I am not one of those classed by him chimney corner naturalists, nor do I swallow everything that is told to me concerning the habits, etc., of animals in this colony. I have had over 20 years' experience of bush life in various parts of New South Wales, and consequently have become pretty well acquainted with the habits, modes, and living, etc., of most of our indigenous animals, and have at one time and another in a period killed hundreds of the animals now in question, and examined scores of the marsupials. So I think my assertions regarding the number of young that the common native cat has at birth can be replied upon. I beg to draw Mr. McCooey's attention to my first article respecting the native cat, as he must have misread or misapplied my statement, inasmuch as he says that not one writer, which is myself, unblushingly states that he found 9 young ones on the teats in the pouch of a tiger cat. Now, I never in my letter, Mr. Editor, mentioned the tiger cat. My statements were restricted entirely to the common native cat, which I flatter myself I know as well or better than our theoretical naturalist, and again assert that I have taken 9 young ones from the pouch of the animal referred to, and very seldom less than 6. Mr. McCooey stated in his first article that the common native cat never had more than 5 at birth. He somewhat qualifies his statement in the second article by saying if they do give birth to more than 5, they are thrown out of the pouch by the mother. This I also know to be incorrect, as I have killed in a nest a mother with 6 half-grown young ones, which were earning their own living, no doubt by robbing the farmer's poultry yard. Mr. McCooey's experience of the native cat amongst the poultry must be small indeed, when he says it will not attack but be put to flight by an infuriating clucking hen. Not only will it attack, but leave the dead in a very short time, several clucking hens. On more than one occasion, at Mr. J. Rotten's place, near Orange, whilst I have been visiting there, have the native cats killed many of his fowls, wild ducks and pheasants, and have been seen and killed in the same enclosure with their victims. No jaunty love-making Thomas could do the damage, as the enclosures were compromised of wire, netting, and no cat but the poor innocent harmless native cat, as spoken of by Mr. McCooey, could squeeze through. I profess to only have a good practical knowledge of the habits, modes, and breeding, etc., of nearly all animals indigenous to this colony, and more particularly the animal under present discussion. I guarantee if you get the experience of, say, 50 farmers living in a locality where the native cat abounds, that the majority of them will tell you of the havoc made amongst their poultry by that pretty little creature. In conclusion, I must add but it seems strange to me that all the letters written in reply to Mr. McCooey's first article upon the native cat entirely disagreed with him, and not one letter I have seen substantiating his ideas. By P. M. Rotten, the end. Being one of those ignorant chimney corner naturalists alluded to by your clever correspondent H. J. McCooey, I am forwarding to you by today's mail a skull of a tiger cat, Dangerous maculatus, which you will perhaps kindly send to the curator of the Sydney Museum and publish the result. I wish to prove, even for my own satisfaction, that I am not like your worthy correspondent is in not knowing what I am talking about. Truly, we ought to be proud of such a naturalist. He first begins an argument about native cats, telling us most emphatically that he knows everything and we know nothing. And then he does begin to see we know some little trifle about the subject. He turns around and abuses us. After being silent for a month, well knowing he is at fault, a happy thought strikes him. In his profound knowledge of native history, he sets to and invents a new species of cat, which he knows as well as I do, never existed, a hybrid cat. Truly a grand idea, as he well knows no one but himself has met with them, and he only has in his imagination. Now, Mr. Editor, is an argument with such a naturalist worth carrying on? I, for one, say no, and in future shall treat any letter he may write on the subject with contempt. Lewis A. Pears, Wanu Tuple, May 22, the end. In the issue of the 17th, Mr. McCooey accuses me and others of being chimney corner naturalists. Now, I, for one, don't claim the honour of being a naturalist at all, but I have had over 20 years' experience in the bush, where native cats are very plentiful, and I do assert that they will kill a full-grown fowl. I have often got out of bed at night and taken the fowls from them. We are obliged to shut a dog in our fowl house at night to keep the cats off. The cat I referred to is a small creature, from 1 pound to 2 pound weight, mostly of greenish grey with white spots, and there are some black with white spots. And, as I said before, they generally have 5 or 6 young at birth. There is a larger cat about here too, but not plentiful. In fact, they are very scarce. They are brownish colour, with white spots, and never do any damage to our poultry that I know of. Now, you see, I am no book naturalist, but I was reading a book on natural history lately, and it said kangaroos of Australia live in burrows under the ground. That was enough book information for me, and I rather suspect Mr. McCooey of getting his information from some such book. He says it is absurd for that the small cat will kill a full-grown turkey. Is he aware that turkeys and fowls are stupid, sleepy things at night and do not show fight? And if they did, they would have very little chance of beating a cat, as the cat steals on them and very often fastens onto the back of their necks before the birds are aware of them. I am not writing this with the hope of altering Mr. McCooey's opinions. He is welcome to believe his own ideas. I am writing for the information of the public generally, and more especially to defend Mr. Rose, who said he believed they would be good things to destroy rabbits, and I believe they would too. I never saw native cats with as many young ones as Mr. Rose, but might be at odds with as many. For all I know, I am only stating what I've improved by experience. Yours, etc., F.W. Wiseman's Creek, May 19, 1884, the end. This next article was published in the Australian Town and Country Journal on Saturday, the 5th of July, 1884, titled The Naturalist, Native Cats. I take great interest in the letters on this subject, but it is just possible that Mr. McCooey does not know everything yet, and there may be things even in Australia that are not dreamt of in his philosophy. Some of your correspondents have rather mixed the two kinds of cats, but I believe they have done their best to give your readers the benefit of their experience and certainly should not be snubbed. I have seen two kinds of cats in Victoria, the small one known as the native cat, and the other as the tiger cat. The latter is very fierce if interfered with, and I've known one to jump out of his hole at a man who looked in. I have often hunted them away from the hen roost, and always found dead fowls after their visit, but never found that one had been eaten, but only bitten in the neck, which made us suppose they only sucked the blood. What few I saw in Victoria were yellow with white spots, but I have shot one here of a brownish colour. Their tails seem to be longer in proportion to their size than the tails of the native cat. The latter I have seen were of two colours, yellow with white spot and black with white spots, the latter colour being the scarcest, but in parts of the district of Portland Bay, they used to be as plentiful or more so than the yellow. They are anything but timid, for they will come into your hut and growl over food that they find, although you may be lying nearby, and if you attack them, will turn and fight like bulldog ants. They will kill young fowls and eat part of what they kill. They have 8 or 9 young at birth, and I have often found them with that number. Apologising for troubling you, Anne Bongogo, June 6th, the end. Okay, so this final letter is now. Sir, I would like to make a few remarks in reference to the native cat. Mr. H.J. McCooey states in one of his comments on his animal in your issue of May 17 that one clucking hen would put a room full of them to flight in an instant. Now, as an eyewitness, I can assure him that one native can do a clucking hen to death in the length of time he mentions. They also, notwithstanding their comparative smallness, kill turkeys and geese. This statement is perfectly true, having caught them in the act. 20 years' experience among poultry enables me to say a little on the subject. I have infrequently been obliged to rescue fowls from the attacks of the native cat. I only wish that Mr. H.J. McCooey could be transformed into one of my clucking hens for a short time. Then he would know something he does not seem to know of native cats. Regarding the tiger cat, he is correct in many of his remarks, but if a tiger cat is so rare an animal, hybrid cats are numerous enough, and perhaps Mr. McCooey will kindly explain. The cat, generally known as the tiger cat, is so common in this vicinity that I succeeded in killing 4 in the course of 1 week, who were destroying my hens. Thank you for so much space. I am yours truly, GC Taralga, June 7th, EN. Oh, it's a classic, isn't it? H.J. McCooey, he's going to have to, I have got a third one because he won't be able to handle all the people getting upset because he called all these people chimney corner naturalists, which is virtually calling them armchair experts. And as far as I'm concerned, even though like H.J. McCooey's done some pretty good things as naturalists, especially regarding snakes and lizards, and he's also got a Yowie sighting to his credit, he's made a lot of mistakes when he's writing about tiger cats and native cats, and he obviously can't help himself, and he's got to come back and reply, which he does, and he's an armchair expert. And I'll tell you a little bit about the man. The pictures you've been seeing of him are actually mugshots. So I'll give you some idea about the bloke. So we'll get back to the Facebook group of 1884, and there's a 3rd instalment coming, and probably a 4th, because knowing Mr. H.J. McCooey, he can't help himself. Okay, that's it from me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.